Welcome to our deep dive. Today, we're looking at something absolutely fundamental, but maybe something we don't always think about, the global power market.
Right. It's huge. It literally lights up everything, powers our whole economy.
Exactly. And today, we're trying to get a real handle on it quickly. We've been digging into the global power market. Growth and Regional Outlook to 2033 report from Cognitive Market Research.
hmm
So our mission really is to pull out the key takeaways, maybe some surprising facts about where things are heading.
And hopefully make sense of those big numbers.
Yes, by the end of this, you should have a much clearer picture of where this market is going, which regions are growing fastest, and importantly, why they're growing so fast. No getting lost in the weeds.
Should be some real aha moments, hopefully.
Okay, let's start with the scale. I mean, it's hard to even grasp, but this industry pulled in, what, over $1.1 trillion globally back in 2021?
That's right. $1,115.8 billion to be precise. But it's the projections that are really eye-opening.
Tell us about those.
Well, the report sees it growing to over 1.5 trillion by 2025. So pretty soon.
Okay.
And then hitting a pretty staggering $3 trillion, roughly, by 2033.
Wow.
Yeah, that's expanding at a compound annual growth rate, a CAGR of nearly 8.8%. Yeah, that's really significant acceleration.
So hang on, doing the quick math, that's not quite doubling. It's almost tripling the market size in about 12 years.
Pretty much, yeah, just over a decade. It's a huge trend.
Right.
Shows the massive demand.
Incredible. Okay, so that's the global view. But you mentioned it's not the same everywhere.
Not at all. When you zoom in regionally, you see very different stories unfolding. That's where it gets really interesting, I think.
Right, some areas are really surging ahead.
Exactly. And looking at those differences, it tells you a lot about economic development, population growth, where the energy demand is really taking off.
So where should we start? Which region is leading the pack?
Definitely Asia Pacific. The APAC power market is the fastest growing overall. We're talking a CAGR just over 10%.
10%. Okay.
It was valued around $224 billion back in 2021, and it's projected to hit almost $685 billion by 2033.
Again, nearly tripling. That's remarkable. What's fueling that? Who are the big drivers there?
Well, China is a huge part of it, of course. Its market's projected to grow massively, with a CAGR around 9.5%. Japan also shows really strong growth. Similar rate, actually, around 9.5% CAGR as well.
Okay, but I remember seeing one country that really stood out, even more than those giants.
Ah, yes. You're probably thinking of India.
That's the one. Their growth rate seemed exceptional.
It really is. India has the highest individual country CAGR in the whole report. It's over 10.8%.
Wow.
Its market is expected to go from about $31.5 billion to over $103 billion by 2033. Think massive infrastructure pushes, urbanization, huge population needing more power.
Makes sense. Any other hotspots in APAC?
Yeah. Singapore is also showing strong growth, over 10.5% CAGR, and Southeast Asia as a whole over 10.3%. It's quite widespread.
And wasn't there something about the rest of APAC as well, like beyond the big names?
Yes, exactly. The rest of APAC category, so grouping together many other emerging economies, actually had the fastest sub-regional growth rate of all. Nearly 11.8% CAGR.
That is fascinating. It shows it's not just China and India, but broader regional development driving demand.
Precisely. A really broad-based expansion happening there.
Okay, so APAC is clearly the growth engine. Where else are we seeing maybe not quite that level, but still really significant acceleration?
Well, South America is definitely worth looking at. It's showing very strong growth, too. It was about $75 billion in 2021. And it's forecast to reach over $235 billion by 2033.
And the growth rate there?
A very solid CAGR, nearly 9.9%, so not far behind APAC overall.
Any particular countries leading the charge in South America?
Brazil is the biggest in terms of revenue. It's projected to grow substantially, around a 9.5% CAGR.
Okay.
But similar to the India story in APAC, Argentina actually shows an even higher growth rate, over 10.4% CAGR there.
Interesting. So an urban development fueling that industrialization, maybe?
Likely a mix of factors. Industrial growth, expanding electricity access, resource development, all probably playing a role. And you see healthy growth in Colombia, Peru, Chile, too, mostly over 8.8%.
And like APAC, what about the rest of South America? Is that also a dynamic category?
It is, yeah. That group is surging as well, with a CAGR over 10.2%. It really suggests a widespread push across the continent for economic progress and better infrastructure.
Okay, so we've seen these really high growth frontiers. let's pivot now to the more, let's say, established markets. How does North America fit into this picture of global expansion? Still a major player.
Oh, absolutely. North America is still a massive piece of the puzzle. Its market was already huge, almost $449 billion in 2021.
Right.
And is projected to grow to nearly $1.2 trillion by 2033. That's a CAGR of over 8.4%. Still very significant growth on a very large base.
And I assume the U.S. is the dominant force there.
It definitely takes the lion's share, yes.
Yeah.
The U.S. market was over $350 billion in 2021, heading towards over $930 billion by 2033.
Okay, and its growth rate?
Around 8.2% CAGR. So steady growth, driven by ongoing demand, big pushes in grid modernization, the energy mix shifting.
Right.
What's interesting, though, is Canada. While smaller overall, its CAGR are actually higher, nearly 9.6%.
Oh, really? That's quite a clip.
Yeah, suggests strong investment there. And Mexico is also contributing significantly, nearly 9% CAGR as well.
Okay, interesting dynamics even within North America. What about Europe? How does it compare?
Europe's another major market, of course.
Yeah.
It stood at over $320 billion in 2021, expected to reach almost $850 billion by 2033.
And the growth rate?
Very similar to North America, actually, about 8.4% CAGR overall.
Yeah.
But Europe is, well, Europe. It's quite diverse within the continent.
Right. So what are the standout features within Europe? Is it more about the energy transition there, perhaps?
It feels like a mix. You have the major economies, Germany, France, the UK, all key contributors. Germany's growth is around 7.8%, the UK around 7.6%. France, interestingly, shows a stronger growth rate, over 9.2% CAGR, maybe reflecting some specific national energy policies or investments. Italy, Russia, Spain are also significant players, with CAGRs generally between, say, 7.3 and 8.8%. So quite a range.
So definitely not uniform growth. You've got stronger performers like France and Italy, maybe more moderate rates elsewhere like Sweden or Denmark.
Exactly. Those Nordic countries, Switzerland, Luxembourg, they all contribute, but maybe at slightly lower CAGRs, sort of in the 6-7% range mostly.
And the rest of Europe, similar pattern to the other regional.
Yes. And quite strong, actually. The rest of Europe segment showed the highest growth within the continent, almost 9.8% CAGR.
Wow. So again, that collective power of smaller, diverse nations driving significant overall growth. What drives that? Is it EU policy, renewables focus?
Could be a combination. Maybe catching up on infrastructure, specific national policies adding up, cross-border integration efforts. There's interesting questions about that collective dynamism.
Definitely. Okay, last regions to cover, the Middle East and Africa. Are they seeing similar growth trajectories, or are they on a different path?
They're definitely part of the global expansion, but generally at a somewhat slower pace compared to APAC or South America. The Middle East market was over $33 billion in 2021, projected to hit nearly $71 billion by 2033.
And the growth rate there?
About 6.7% CAGR for the region. Key players are Saudi Arabia and Turkey, but the UAE actually has the highest regional CAGR, over 7.8%.
Okay, perhaps reflecting those big diversification and infrastructure projects in the UAE.
That would make sense, yeah. Economic diversification often drives up energy demand significantly.
Maybe Africa.
Africa's power market started smaller, around $13 billion in 2021, and is projected to reach over $33.5 billion by 2033. The CAGR there is over 6.4%.
Right. Who are the main drivers in Africa?
Nigeria and South Africa are leading, both with CAGRs just over 6%. And again, the rest of Africa shows solid growth too, around 6.8% CAGR.
So while the growth rates might be slower than, say, APAC, it's still consistent expansion from a smaller base, which is crucial for development.
Absolutely vital, driven by things like increasing energy access, population growth, early stages of industrialization in many areas. It's steady, important growth.
Okay, so we've toured the globe, looked at these huge numbers, these varying growth rates. What does this all boil down to? What does it mean for, someone listening, whether they're in business, policy, or just curious?
Well, I think the big takeaway is that we're undeniably in a period of massive global energy change, both transition and sheer demand growth.
Right.
Understanding these trends, the incredible speed in APAC, the huge scale but steady growth in North America, the diverse picture in Europe, it provides really critical context.
Context for what specifically?
For understanding global development patterns, for anticipating where huge infrastructure investments are needed, even for thinking about resource allocation and supply chains. It paints a vivid picture of where the world's energy focus is shifting. Knowledge is power, as they say, and these numbers really map out that power shift.
That's a great way to put it. We've definitely unpacked a lot, the sheer size of the market, those standout growth stories in places like India and Argentina, the different dynamics in established markets, it really shows a world in flux.
It really does. The report gives us a fascinating snapshot of a truly dynamic, absolutely critical industry.
So maybe a final thought for our listeners to ponder. We've seen these very different regional growth rates, and we've touched on some drivers: population, economy, policy.
Hmm.
Given all that, what do you think are the biggest underlying factors that really explain these specific regional differences? Is it more technology adoption, climate policy pressures, basic economic development, or something else? And maybe, looking ahead, how might shifts in those drivers reshape this map even further beyond 2033?
That's the multi-trillion-dollar question, isn't it? A lot to think about there regarding sustainability, innovation, and future challenges.
Indeed. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive today. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep being curious.
Welcome to the Deep Dive, your direct line to getting really well informed. Today, we're diving into something huge, something critical happening right now: the massive transformation of the global power market. Yeah, it's moving incredibly fast. And for our chat today, we're drawing on some really solid insights from cognitive market research. Our mission, really, is to unpack what's driving these huge changes, look at the hurdles, the obstacles getting in the way, and also explore the exciting new trends that are literally rewiring our energy future. And this matters for you, whether you're, prepping for a meeting, trying to get up to speed on the sector, or maybe you're just really curious about how power shapes everything around us. Understanding this is pretty essential. Okay, so let's unpack this. Where do we start? What's really fueling this massive shift in the power market? What's the biggest push according to the research?
Right. Well, what really jumps out from the cognitive market research data is this relentless drive for decarbonization. It's unavoidable. Governments everywhere are making these huge commitments, moving beyond just talk. The research highlights massive global investments pouring into renewables: wind, solar, hydro. We're talking potentially over $1.5 trillion a year by 2030?
Wow.
Yeah, it's all about hitting those net zero targets. And it's not just about making electricity greener, it's shaking up entire economies, manufacturing, transport, everything.
That level of investment, yeah, it's truly staggering. But it's not only the supply side changing, is it? Demand is rocketing, too. How are things like urbanization, industrial growth, especially in places growing really fast, how's that playing into this?
Oh, the demand side is absolutely a huge part of the story. The research points to really rapid acceleration, particularly in economies across Asia and Africa. Think about cities just booming, industries like data centers scaling up like crazy, advanced manufacturing.
Yeah, data centers alone must be massive energy consumers.
Exactly. So reliable, scalable power isn't just nice to have, it becomes a top national priority. We're seeing demand surges that are pushing existing grids right to their limit.
Okay, and this is where it gets really interesting for me, the technology piece. How are things like grid modernization helping make this all actually work?
The tech is, it's fundamental. It's the enabler. For instance, AI-driven energy management. It's not just about saving a bit of energy anymore. The report shows it's enabling things like predictive maintenance, figuring out failures before they happen, cutting downtime.
Okay.
And it's managing the grid dynamically, rerouting power instantly to balance supply and demand. Smart grids are becoming genuinely smart, self-healing even.
Self-healing.
Yeah, able to handle all these intermittent renewables coming online. And then you have storage, big utility batteries, but also newer stuff like flow batteries for longer duration. It just makes the grid way more resilient, more responsive.
Okay, that makes sense. But, no big change like this happens smoothly. There got to be roadblocks. What are the main things holding back progress, according to the research?
Yeah, there are definitely significant hurdles. A major one highlighted is just the sheer cost, the capital needed, and financing difficulties. This is especially tough in developing regions. You need huge upfront investments for these projects.
Right.
And if you have unstable policies or it's hard to get affordable capital, well, investment just dries up. The research suggests a potential investment gap may be trillions of dollars over the next decade in these key areas.
Trillions, wow. And what about the pipes and wires already in the ground? In developed countries, some of that infrastructure is really old, isn't it?
Absolutely. That aging infrastructure problem, especially in mature economies like in Europe or North America, it's critical. We're talking outdated transmission lines. The research estimates they're responsible for maybe 5 to 7% of energy losses globally.
Just lost.
Mhm.
Vanished.
Pretty much. Billions in wasted energy every year. Plus, it means inefficiencies, makes the grid more vulnerable to, say, extreme weather. And these old systems just weren't built for power flowing both ways, which you get with renewables like rooftop solar.
That brings up a really important question then about the rules, the policies.
Hmm.
How does regulatory fragmentation, different rules in different places, slow processes, how does that actually slow things down?
It creates a real drag. Inconsistent policies, really slow permitting. Sometimes it takes years just to get approval.
Years just for permits.
Yeah. And then subsidies might change unexpectedly. All this creates huge uncertainty. The research really emphasizes how this uncertainty stretches out project timelines and just makes investors nervous. It's hard to commit billions to a long-term project if you think the rules might change halfway through.
Okay, so despite those very real challenges, there's also this incredible wave of innovation happening. Let's shift to that, to the future. What are the big emerging trends shaping where the power sector is heading?
Well, one of the most transformative trends, I think, is the boom in distributed energy resources, DRs. We're seeing this fundamental shift away from just big centralized power plants.
Right, like solar panels on roofs.
Exactly. Rooftop solar is a prime example, becoming much more common. But also things like community microgrids, which can provide local power resilience and home battery storage. The research points out how this is turning consumers into producers, prosumers, they sometimes call them.
Prosumer.
It fundamentally changes the grid from a one-way street into this dynamic two-way network. It's kind of democratizing power in a way.
That idea, consumers becoming producers, it's fascinating. And what about electrification? Things like electric cars, electric heating? How's it changing the demand picture?
Oh, it's completely reshaping load patterns. The growth in EVs, electric vehicles, and heat pumps, it's explosive. It creates totally new demands on the grid. Think about everyone coming home and plugging in their car at roughly the same time.
Yeah, that could cause issues.
Exactly. It requires massive investment in charging infrastructure, but also much smarter grid management to avoid overloading local networks. So it's not just more demand, it's different, more dynamic demand. The grid needs to get way more flexible.
Okay. And looking maybe a bit further out, hydrogen keeps coming up. What's its potential role here? Is it really a future fuel?
Hydrogen, specifically green hydrogen.
Green meaning made with renewables.
Exactly. Produced using renewable electricity for the electrolysis. It's generating a lot of excitement and investment. Governments, big energy companies, they're pouring billions into it. The idea is to use it in sectors that are really hard to decarbonize otherwise.
Like what?
Things like steel production, cement, maybe aviation, heavy shipping, stuff that's hard to just run on batteries. But what makes it potentially a real game changer, according to the research, is its potential for long-duration energy storage.
Storing energy for longer than batteries can.
Right. Think storing energy captured from summer sun to use in the winter. It could help balance out those seasonal variations where batteries might not be enough.
Okay, wow. So pulling this all together then, the message from cognitive market research seems crystal clear. The whole global power system isn't just changing, it's being fundamentally rewired, like right now. We've talked about the big drivers: decarbonization, tech advances, we've covered the restraints costs, old infrastructure, tangled regulations, and these huge trends on the horizon: DERs, electrification, green hydrogen.
Exactly. And if you connect this to the bigger picture, these aren't just tweaks to the system. They have really profound implications for industries, for economies, and honestly for your everyday life. How we actually power our world is undergoing this fundamental shift. It brings huge opportunities, but also some pretty significant challenges ahead.
So what does this all mean for you listening? Well, understanding these shifts, it isn't just academic. It really gives you that shortcut to being properly informed about where energy is going and how that directly touches your world, your choices. And as you think about all this energy revolution unfolding, here's something to mull over. With this big push towards decentralizing power, towards these distributed energy resources, how might your personal relationship with energy, how you get it, how you use it, how might that fundamentally change over the next, say, 10 years? What new possibilities could that open up for you?